Hello everyone, George DeSantis here with the look of the market for the week ending April 1st, 2016. We'll start off as we usually do with a monthly chart of the S&P 500. The market continued to trend up this past week, broke through some resistances, and now we need to take a look and see where we stand. So let's take a look at the monthly chart. So on this monthly chart of the S&P 500, there was only one day so far, of course, in the month of April. That's Friday, one day of trading. But interestingly, of course, we moved above the instantaneous trend line. It opened and closed above it. The Kalman filter is trending up now, and it's sitting just below the instantaneous trend line. If and when it breaks above that, we would have confirmation that on the monthly chart we have an uptrend, which is a longer term trend. For example, if you're buying and holding stocks, doing position trading, this be very favorable. The MACD continues to trend up a little from below the zero line, and that's fine. That's favorable for the bullish scenario. And of course, at the bottom of the chart, Elder Force, the 13-day period, is situated above the zero line. That's bullish. So all in all, the multi-chart is beginning to look much more interesting from a bullish perspective. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. All right, so on the weekly chart here, we have the S&P 500. Last week we saw that there was a bullish harami. These two bars made up a candlestick pattern of a bullish harami. Sometimes this is what I referred to. Sometimes people call it as a pregnant woman. The small body here within this large body of the candlestick. Last week we saw that 2054 seemed to be posing some resistance at this level. Now, last week we broke above it and closed above it. So this is pretty bullish. We still have the Kalman filter trending up above the instantaneous trend line, the blue line. We still have, of course, parabolic dots here. Last 3 weeks are below the most recent bars, which is bullish because on this bar it signaled a reversal of the trend from a downtrend to an uptrend. So what we're looking at now is resistance at about 2092, 2094, somewhere around here. And we hope that we can break through that too if we're really going to have a much longer bullish run here. However, if you have stocks, you want to pay attention to candlestick formations for topping patterns. We'll take a look at those. For example, over here we had a shooting star. Some people call it, I call it the finger. Lots of dojis. You can see a topping pattern here. We can't break above this level. So if we see something like that coming up here, we might want to tighten our stops, certainly, or even sell and wait for the pullback. Let's take a look below here. We have RSI 12 continuing to trend up, almost is sitting right below the 60% line. So the trend is still up. The trend started here when it crossed above the 40% line. MACD continues to trend up from below the zero line and now is above it. And at the bottom of the chart, percent R is now above the 80% level here on this chart, and that means that the momentum is pretty strong. I use percent R as a momentum indicator. Others do as well, with a 30 period. So let's look at so in general, this chart is very bullish with some resistance overhead. And we are likely to find some resistance there, but we need to look at the candlestick formations and any other indication that we are topping out and ready for correction. Let's take a look at a daily chart. Now this is a daily chart of the S&P 500. We saw it last week. It's one of those that I use. A few different indicators on it. This is the 930, 9 EMA, the 30 weighted moving average. We have a nice uptrend as we know. We have parabolic dots below the most recent bars. Last week I pointed out that this is a fractal here. The highs of this bar and this bar, these two bars are lower than this high, and this and it's all, and these two bars, their highs are also lower than this high. So I put my order into buy SSO on the SSO chart, of course, and I got filled somewhere around 63 and a fraction, 63.40 or something like that. I don't recall now. In any case, we do have a nice uptrend, as we know, as we see from the other charts. Now let's look at RSI. RSI is above the 60% line. This RSI 12, confirming the uptrend. The professional buying power, Larry Williams indicator that I plotted here, is also very bullish, above the zero line. And also percent R at the bottom of the chart is way above the 80% line in this case. So we have a nice looking bullish daily chart here. We closed above that resistance level as we saw on the previous chart, on the weekly chart. Let's take a look at another daily chart, which I often looked at. We have a few different indicators on this daily chart of the S&P, which we often look at. So let's take a look. On the top of the chart here, we see that this was that fractal that I talked about. The parabolic is now below these bars. We can see them here again, and of course the Kalman filter is still above the instantaneous trend line. So we're in an uptrend. I recall speaking to you about Jerry Appel's indicator that I put on here. We basically had a buy signal here at this level, these levels here, and we're still in a buy signal on the S&P. As far as Jerry Appel's sum of the rate of change indicator is concerned, MACD is offering a little concern here, a little problematic. Is being a little problematic because MACD is losing strength here. There is no divergence to be identified here, but we have to keep an eye on that. That may be telling us that this market is becoming overbought rather, and we're going to run into some resistance, as we know, at the 2092 level or so, as we saw earlier. Percent R is looking very strong. Again, you saw that before, but this is the indicator that is added on this chart, Jerry Appel's. So we pay attention to that. Let's take a look at some of the other charts from stock charts. This is that chart from stockcharts.com showing us the impulse indicator, colored where the bars are colored red, green, or blue. When it's green, as we know, green or blue, we have permission to buy the security or the index. And right now we can see that on this daily chart of the S&P, we have permission to buy. It's a green bar. Okay. The thing that concerns me, as I saw in some of the other charts, is that MACD is losing strength here. And that may be an indication, as I mentioned earlier, that we are going to be bumping up against some resistance here, and we need to pay attention. Don't fall asleep. Let's take a look at some other charts. This is the weekly chart of the S&P with the impulse indicator, impulse bars, and we can see that they're continually being colored green. So that's pretty good, pretty bullish. And we also had a little uptick here in volume on the weekly chart. So the weekly chart is still looking pretty good. We're bumping up. You see this, if you drew a line here, we're still going to be approaching that resistance level here. So again, that's what we need to pay attention to. That's about it. I think we are in a bullish trend. Let's face it, we're in a bullish trend here. We are approaching those resistance levels that we need to pay attention to and keep stops in, or these are physical stops, or pay attention to the charts and make sure that you don't give back any gains that you have. That's it. Have a nice weekend.